Hi everyone, this is Shirin Neshat speaking from Brooklyn, New York. I'm here to answer a few questions to Natalie David from Hamburg International Film Festival. I wanted to say first of all how honored I am that Land of Dreams has been invited to this wonderful festival, and I'm so sorry I can't be there in person. Thank you, Natalie, for your very thoughtful comments and questions, and I'll try to do my best to answer them.
Land of Dreams is a beautiful complex work with a lot of aesthetic references. We think of surrealism, of Maya de Rennes. We see an amusing looking back at Cindy Sherman and Sophie Calle, a beautiful visual quote from Richard Long. It's like an homage to futuristic film or film d'anticipation and a road movie in the desert of New Mexico. There is an iconic song from Marilyn Monroe for J.F. Kennedy, which can be seen as being for Trump at that time, and mainly very strong references to your own artwork as a photographer, as a video artist, and as a political artist. How did you make the balance between all these different kinds of media and subject matter?
I wanted to begin by saying that all of my work, in many ways, Natalie, have been very, very personal, and I basically brought everything that I've experienced in this life into the picture, emotionally and artistically and politically. And Land of Dreams, I think, is perhaps one of the most autobiographical work that I've made so far, certainly in film. That the main character, Simin, is not only an Iranian woman immigrant living in the US, but also is an artist, or at least someone with an artistic inclination, a photographer, an impersonator, someone who's obsessed with creating images, and someone who is obsessive and lives in her imagination. Someone who can't really cope with reality as we know it. And similar to myself, she's a woman conflicted between two cultures, Iran and American culture, and that both of them are problematic. The Iranian culture haunts her, as her own history is very dark, with a father being executed by the government, and political issues that I've had. Of course, my father hasn't been executed, but also a country that has adopted her, but is also complicated. So what I've tried to do is really to show how art has been a source, a tool for myself and for Simin to cope with life and to survive, to find peace in chaos, and to be able to create a channel to communicate with the world.
There is always a duality in your work. In Land of Dreams, we have this duality between dream, air, subconscious, and reality, photography, paper, conscious. The duality between Iran and America, and of course between men and women. It has always been an essential part of your work to place a female figure in a central position, like in The Woman of Allah, 1990, with women's poetry, or in your previous film, which was an homage to the singer Kulthum, or now in Land of Dreams with Simin, an art student with a very strong personality. Was it also important for you to have this duality in the filmmaking process itself, when you gave the script to two men to write, Jean-Claude Carrière and Shoja Azari, who is also the co-filmmaker of Land of Dreams? How much are you involved in the process at this stage?
Well, the first part of the question, I must respond to that absolutely. I believe everything that I've made so far, whether it's a photograph or a video or a movie, have all constituted around a notion of opposite, duality, contradiction, paradox, male and female, politics and spirituality, mysticism and violence, Occident and Orient, personal, individual plight versus socio-political issues of a country. Rebellion versus being a conformist. And in many ways, I can't even think outside of this sense of duality. And perhaps it's who I am as someone who's always conflicted between so many things. And going back to your question of how my work is always about women, but I work with two men to make a film about a female-driven character. I think that in my collaboration with Shoja Azari, who's been a long-time collaborator with me, and Jean-Claude Carrier, the beloved French scriptwriter who sadly passed away last year, went above gender. I think it was an artistic inclination. I was attracted and fascinated by Jean-Claude's history of an artist who has written so many fantastic films, scripts that have to do with absurdity, surrealism, and yet with very, very sharp political angle. Shoja Azari is someone who is an artist of his own right and filmmaker as his own right, but he's very, very understanding of my own nature as an artist. And I sort of gave birth to the idea, the initial idea, but I needed help to embellish the narrative. And I think that the three of us brought also our own experiences and relationship to America, to this country, to the narrative. In the last year before we shot the film, after Jean-Claude simply sort of finished what he had to do, handed it to me and Shoja, we worked very closely with Shoja, and yet he took the leading role in the actual writing of the script. But we sat together every day and we discussed the characters and the scenes day after day.
In the first, almost surreal sequence of the film, it seems we are in Simin's dream. Her father is lying on the ground and is about to die, but she has time to say goodbye to him before death takes him. Is this a metaphor for your fatherland, which you left at the age of 17? And why did you choose, for the first time I think, to focus on your adoptive country and photograph in a previous series of works what we now see in the film, an America with all these American diversities?
Absolutely. The image, the dream or the nightmare of Simin replicates the dreams that I've had a number of times about seeing my own father and mother standing there in Iran, somewhere in the desert, and I am standing in the US, in America, and sort of running toward them and them running toward me. And when they finally reach me, they're not my parents anymore, and it's not my home. And this idea of the motherland, the fatherland, and losing a parent is almost like losing a country. In my case, I've lost my father. My mother is still alive, and I always live with the fear of losing my mother would mean losing the motherland. And to answer the rest of your question, yes, I felt it was important finally, after all these years living in this country, I think longer than I've lived in my own country. I've lived in the United States, but never given myself the license to make and work about this culture and be able to criticize it, or at least not just criticize it, but give my point of view, and a country that I love and dare to criticize. And what I also was concerned about, especially after Trump came into the power, is the shift in the American society, and how I felt what I always cherished about this country was shifting very quickly, and the voices of immigrants like myself became more and more critical, and how diversity was so important. So the photographs that you're speaking about are a portrait of America, and this film in many ways is my journey in America and how I see the good and bad, like every other country.
We are living in a strange moment of time since the pandemic. It's a period of transition, and we don't really know where we are going. Do you think this has had an impact on your work?
Absolutely. I think the sense of vulnerability, insecurity that hit every human being, I think really globally in the past year and a half hit me hard, and I had to take a backseat from my busy artistic activity and think a lot about what I had to say and what was my perspective about the amount of suffering and pain that we all endured, and how politics plays a role in this, and so I feel that we all gain perspective, and most of all, I think more than ever we need culture, we need artists to communicate, and in this time of crisis, and more than ever, I think the audience look for content, that we don't look only for entertainment but content. And I feel like a great responsibility to do the best I can to make work that is meaningful. And thank you again for these wonderful questions, and I hope I did okay.
Dear Shirin, I wish you all good for your future works. With very warm regards, Nathalie.